Empathy in marketing. Following the rise of popular terms like content, segmentation, and programmatic, empathy seems to be the latest buzzword taking the marketing world by storm. But what exactly does it mean? And more importantly, how do you be empathetic in marketing in a practical sense? Turns out there are 3 things you need, so let's dive in. Last week, Google hosted a live interview with Mary Beach, the Chief Marketing Officer of Kate Spade. The topic was, of course, empathy in marketing. And I got to ask a question during their live Q&A.
This is a good one, looking to the future, from Jordan on YouTube.
My question was, Mary, what do you believe is the future of empathetic marketing, especially with video? Her response was really interesting.
It takes understanding. It can't just be the science and the metrics and the data. It takes taking the science and the metrics and really converting them almost into customer understanding and human understanding.
Okay, before we start talking about human behavior, it's really important to understand what empathy is and what it is not. First off, empathy is not a tool. It's not a system or a strategy, and there's no metric for empathy that you can plug into your marketing dashboard. And you're certainly not going to find empathy as the new sauce on Scott Brinker's next MarTech super graphic. Also, empathy is not sympathy. In his latest book, Storynomics, Robert McKee says, sympathetic means likable, an amiable, companionate person the target audience might want as a friend, family, or neighbor. In contrast, empathetic means like me, an innate trait shared by both the core character and the target audience. He goes on to write that sympathy is optional, but empathy is essential. Audience involvement hinges on an act of personal identification. Audience involvement is, by the way, probably what you mean when you write a creative brief, then you say that the video needs to be engaging. It means there's a personal identification between video and audience, not just a passing likability. So let me give you an example. In a recent meeting with a client, we were discussing how to introduce a particular character in the story who's been dealt a bad hand. There's a real risk of them becoming what I call the injured puppy, a pitiable creature whose helplessness is magnified by an onslaught of embarrassment and misery. In other words, every nerdy kid at the beginning of every forgettable young adult drama. You really only care as much as you pity them, so it barely works as sympathy and it really fails as empathy because the world is just happening to them. There's nothing they're doing to give you the idea that, hey, they're like me.
I think about the Kate Spade woman every morning and hope that I can be more like her. You wish you had it that much together, but we're also that comfortable with not having it together.
In other words, Mary can say, along with her customers, this Kate Spade protagonist is like me. McKee calls this the empathy imperative. If your target audience member does not sense a mutual humanity between herself and the story's core character, she will not care, not listen, not identify, and not be moved to act. Empathy is absolute. Just kind of as a sidebar, McKee adds that the tendency in marketing is to make up for an uninspired story with casting. But that's fallacious, and if I might pile on, it's the dreadful pitfall of buyer personas called stereotyping. An every woman protagonist is not a guarantee of customer centricity. What the consumer wants is a human affinity, not a cliched facsimile. So we need a protagonist, an actual person or an idea, who creates this human affinity between brand and consumer audience. So the question is obvious. Who is this protagonist? How do we bring them to life? It's certainly not novel, but the answer is really straightforward. Talk to your customers. Do you know what they want, need, lack, or fear? Do you know what they think or feel about your brand and what you offer? And for those more inclined to analytics, do you look beyond the data to discover human behavior? And do those conclusions line up with your customers' experiences?
And we learned that that target audience of women cared about things like what is confidence and what is ambition and what does happiness look like.
All of this insight illuminates your target audience's pain point, that central facet that makes them a customer to begin with. But you can't just create a protagonist who shares the same pain as your audience and call it done. That's not how empathy works. That's just an injured puppy. McKee says that an audience subconsciously identifies with the positive human quality emanating from within the character. For example, a customer's pain point might be needing financial stability. A poor protagonist would be someone who's just like them, worried, confused, and unsure about their finances. But a good protagonist could be someone who works a second job to provide for his family, or is really generous with her money. Remember, in order for a character to be empathetic, they actually have to do something that demonstrates their relatability with the core audience. For the Kate Spade New York woman, it's how she carries herself, whether it's in print, digital, or video.
So we really are setting up this person that is aspirational in that you wish you had it that much together, but we're also that much comfortable with like not having it together.
The third and final piece is your brand's core value.
On a regular basis, we have a core value of scrappy at Kate Spade, which is sort of CEO speak for cheap, but we definitely do things in a scrappy way. So we're going out there and talking to our customers in a very authentic way.
Where your customer's pain point and your brand's core value intersect is the fertile ground for creating a good protagonist. It's also your opportunity to do more good with your marketing than has ever been done before, not to mention be profitable. But you need to be careful. Pain points are so named for a reason. You can make it better or you can make it worse. And if you're not careful in your marketing, you'll miss the mark. At best, your work will come across as heavy-handed and disposable, or at worst, crass and manipulative. And that's not good. Audiences today have ad block for a reason. They don't want to watch advertisements at the best of times. So if you serve up a tone-deaf story that exploits your target audience's humanity only to then prove you really don't understand what they care about to begin with, well, Twitter will let you know about it. Empathy is a non-negotiable in modern marketing, especially if your target audience is America's loneliest generation. As McKee said, the positive human quality in your marketing's protagonist is what becomes the story's center of good. For Kate Spade, it's aspiration that intersects with the brand's scrappy value to engender this down-to-earth go-getter New York woman. This positive human quality is everything. It's the critical reagent in marketing with empathy. It's what gives you that personal identification that makes your work engaging. So to recap, empathy is found when there is a personal identification between story and audience. Once you understand your customer's pain point, you can then translate that into a positive human quality. Then you find the intersection of their pain point and your brand's core value and let your imagination run wild. Finally, whether it's someone like your customer or a product you have or even your company, you cast the protagonist in your mind. Now you just have to go tell the right story. That'll have to be another video.
And so I think with video has a way to tell stories that kind of can just hit you with an emotional moment in a way that nothing else can. I mean, I think still images are beautiful as well, and it's almost like a still image that has come to life and is telling a story in a really compelling way. But it can touch a person and really connect with a human in a distinct way if we use the right insights going into it.